G'day, and welcome back for another week. This is Aussie Botcast coming at you from all around the country, this great land of ours. It is cold where I am. I have got my beanie, not much insulation left on the top of my head, so I have to have a beanie, a nice warm jacket, and it is cold here in Melbourne. I have my panel here joining me tonight. We've got Scott / Fockweasel, Adam / Van, and the Z-Beam, Joshua, joining us, as well as our special guest, Brad, BP Arts from Brisbane, and we're very pleased to have him on board. Thank you so much for everyone joining us. We've had some amazing support in the last few weeks. It's crazy to think where this journey has taken us so far, and we are loving every minute of it. So thank you for tuning in. Please give us a like, a subscribe, and a share. If you're watching us live, start filling those comments, because you know that we want you to be part of the show as much as anyone that's on camera. And if you're watching us on replay, you are still very welcome to join us in the comments. We get back to everyone, and we make sure that you as well are part of the conversation. So before we get into our main show tonight, one of the things that we wanted to do when we started this little project was bring together the community in Australia and New Zealand. Shout out to our Kiwi friends as well, always great supporters. We wanted to bring together the community, and we wanted to support the artists, the photographers, the content creators, the fans, and not only in Australia, but the rest of the world. As part of that, we also want to support the things that are really quite difficult in this country, being spread out so far, and those are the cons and the events. So I'm going to hand this over to Scotty, because he brought this to my attention, and this is Fraser Pop, Scott. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Fraser Pop and the ins and hows and the whats, and where people can go to see and take part.
Yeah, no worries. So this is my local, Maryborough. I live in the Bay, so I'm about 20 minutes from it. But yeah, I've been to it once, and it was really good last time I went. And every time it's on, I don't manage to get to it. But fortunately for me, the wife and I were on ball today, and we managed to pick this up straight away. So we've booked time off, so I'll be going to it. But it's just like a little pop fest, really. So they have lots of little stalls, like homemade stuff. It's like a Supanova, but a lot smaller, because it's on a school ground, and it's like a gold coin donation. But they have some really good guests. Like, I think this year they've got the guy that was in Mad Max, the big one that wears the breathing mask, the Aussie actor. He used to be a wrestler. Can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he's coming.
Is it Nathan Jones?
Yes,
Nathan Jones.
Yeah. So I mean, he's pretty big, but I have a lot of Aussie actors that you'd have seen in other things as well. So
yeah.
Let me just make sure, because I don't want to offend that guy, because he's massive. Here's Nathan Jones. Nathan Jones, love ya. Please don't eat me.
Yes.
That
no,
shot
you
is
wouldn't
from
offend
Troy. Love your work.
Yes,
that
he
shot
is
is from
huge. He used to
Troy
be a
when he went
wrestler,
up
sorry.
Yeah, when he went up against Brad Pitt. I remember that scene. That's probably the best scene in that movie. And threw a big old spear at him, missed him. Brad Pitt did a couple of dodges and dives, and gave him a bit of a love tap with his sword right through the neck, if I remember correctly. I heard the other day that Brad Pitt actually did his Achilles on that movie.
The ultimate irony.
He actually did his Achilles. I was like, oh, that's got to enter my my vault of not that useful knowledge. But it looks like a great show. It looks like a great show. So is it run by the high school?
Yeah, it's a good wee thing. It's at the Maryborough High School, and it's like a gold coin donation for an entry fee. So, yeah, it's really well done. And they have, like, last time I went, they had several areas, and they had like a little medieval place and everything like that. So it's really well set up for, like where I am, because like it's Maryborough. It's not huge, but it gets a good turnout.
I think the more that we get exposure to these kind of events, bigger and smaller, the more people realize that it's a viable thing. So much success to Fraser Pop. You'll be our man on the ground. You'll be our Kermit the Frog.
I'll be there, yeah.
On the ground.
Yeah.
I'll
be pushing the podcast to every single person I meet.
If you see Scotty, you can go up and chat to him, but you must subscribe first. There's no appearance fee, but you must subscribe. You must subscribe first because we really love to have it. I look forward to hearing the wrap up from that post the event. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for bringing that.
Yeah, it's the 18th and 19th of July, so I think it's 2 weeks away now. So yeah, the Saturday and Sunday weekend.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to seeing you in a pose off with Nathan Jones.
Jesus, that guy's huge.
I see they got Dean Rankin on there as well. If anyone doesn't know Dean, he's a champion human being, a great artist, and he also did a lot of the Simpsons comics, which is so yeah. He's a regular contributor, and he's really big on the art scene in Australia. So yeah, go see him if you can. Good shout out to Dean.
Shout out to Dean. Love your work, mate. Hopefully we can talk to you in more detail in the future. That would be fantastic. Thank you, Brad. Let's get on with the show, folks. So tonight we are diving into a couple of things. We're diving into someone who grew up with the Marvel UK. It helped shape his desire and his drive to be an artist, a local artist, Bradley from BP Arts. So we got a visual feast for the eyes, right? I'd love to say that I've got this organized in some sort of like official timeline manners, but we know that the timelines in Transformers don't really make sense anyway, a lot of the time. So if we jump to and fro, just bear with us, right? We're doing a great thing here. But tonight, joining us on a Sunday night, we do have Bradley from BP Arts. Thank you so much, mate, for joining us. We really appreciate it. And we'll be flicking through your portfolio as we go through the cast. So if anything comes up that yourself or the audience want to talk about, or any of the panel want to talk about, I'll just be like pressing all the buttons and going everywhere from it. Speaking of the comments, we've got Spartan back in the house. We have Joshua and Emma from Merchants of Venus. Emma, is that right, Josh?
Merchants of Venus, yeah.
Yes, yep. Merchants of Venus, yep. She's got some cool stuff on her channel. You should check it out. And Zwerty, thank you for coming back, Zwerty. We love having you in the audience every week. So I thought we'd start with just some nice blow-ups of the work that we had in the promo image. So we've got Unicron's head. So Brad, not you. Brad, tell us a little bit about yourself, your history with Transformers, what kind of drew you in. You could just say G1, but what's kept you engaged and what made the art so powerful for you to keep going with all these years?
Yeah, no, thanks, and thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. I think, like pretty much most of the people, in our vintage, I was obviously of that age. I was growing up when the toys came out and the cartoons came out, and that was my first sort of foray into it. It was always a struggle back in the 80s because I had my dad was one of those guys that despite the fact that I was a bit of a geek kind of nerd and not very sporty, he forced me to play cricket and rugby on the weekends. So it was like trying to actually get to see the cartoon was hard. There'd be some times where you'd have to run off to play sport and you'd miss it, and you'd have to try and con your brother or your sister or somebody to whack the VCR on to try and get a couple of episodes in here or there. And that was where I first sort of came into it, and then obviously the toys were part of that. And then I think the other part of it was that I was already a comic book nerd sort of come the late 80s or the mid 80s, and so I was reading Marvel comics from the get-go, and obviously along with the show they've brought out the comics, and so for me it wasn't much of a it wasn't a hard transition because I was already invested in the the source material. So I was like, well, I love the toy, I love the cartoon, grab the comic, right? And so you would, obviously, you'd grab the, sometimes the news agency, they'd have those 3-for-1s, or you go to the Acura and they'd have, these bags of comics, and you'd end up with some of them. And, but like I found, like, I would get into that quite a bit. And then, so for me, it was kind of, it wasn't much of a stretch because I was already reading comics, and this was just an easy alignment because I was already into the cartoons and the, and the toys. So yeah, that was kind of where it started.
Give me a chance, Brad. Wasn't the Marvel comics kind of toned down because of the accords that they had, not showing blood, not showing violence, whereas the UK stuff was gritty as?
Oh
Coming
yeah,
from the
absolutely.
2000 AD,
Oh,
it was really went places.
yeah,
And
no,
I remember
exactly.
being perturbed by reading it and going, "What is this?" at a friend's house, like that UK stuff. And they brought in Death's Head as another character. And I just did my research this week. They actually showed Battle Beasts in the official comic.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I think like we were, basically, like you had the US stuff, which was the first, that started off first, and then for whatever reason, the UK guys started doing their own book, and it was, the thing that we all loved about it was that, it came out weekly, so you weren't waiting 4 weeks for the next issue, right? So they were doing a weekly book, and it was like a magazine style, so it wasn't your typical comic book size. It was a larger magazine format. And the thing about it was, you weren't just getting Transformers, you're actually getting 2 or 3 other different stories, similar to what you get with 2000 AD, or, some of the other, sort of zine comics at the time. So what they would kind of do is they would have an obligation to reprint, the UK or the US stuff, pardon me, and they would have to do that over 3 or 4 weeks because the books were shorter. But they would also have their own stories, and there's an iconic cover right there. That was where they kind of came up with the origin. But yeah, it was essentially, because they were doing stuff every week, they had to basically, they were coming up with a lot of different side stuff and a lot of different obscure characters and storylines that the US version wasn't really doing. They were more following the toy line, which was their obligation, right? They had to follow that. Whereas the guys that were doing the UK one, they kind of had a little bit more leeway, and so they were able to really expand on the lore, I suppose, right? And then this covers a really good example because the main writer was Simon Furman, right? He pretty much wrote all the UK run, and it was this particular issue was a storyline which was Legacy of Unicron, and they actually came up with the origin of the Transformers, which I can probably go into a little bit more later, but they were able. I think as a fan, you got more of the lore out of the UK version than you did of the US. The US was, it was good, but it was all about the toys, and it was all about, they had some good storylines, don't get me wrong, but the UK stuff really kind of delved into a lot of extra stuff that, if you didn't get it, I felt you were missing out. I looked forward more to the UK run every week than I did the US one. So yeah, it was that's kind of how it went for me. Like I was just, and then I obviously, like later in life, when I got back into drawing again, I kind of went, like this is where this is my jam. This is stuff that I want to do. I was doing I still draw a lot of other stuff, Star Wars and, just general artwork. But, in terms of, going to cons and the fandom and what I'm invested in, this is kind of where it is for me, and I think,
So, can we talk about your well, obviously we want to talk about your art, but can we talk about like where your art started? Like when did you start, really kind of dedicating yourself to the practice? What happened to make you kind of stop, and what brought you back to it?
Yeah.
Then I'd love to talk a little bit about your process of how you develop and create these beautiful pictures, because they really are vibrant.
Thanks. Yeah, no, it's interesting because obviously, like, yeah, when I was at school, I was, obviously heavily into comics, and I used to try and draw my own comics as a kid, and wasn't so much Transformers then. I did do a little bit of that, but I was doing a bit of everything, and trying to make up your own characters and this and that. Anyway, I art was my thing. I definitely wanted to get into a career in art. But back in the early 90s when I finished school, we were taught that because of the recession, if you didn't go to uni and, you didn't get into a good course and go to university, you were going to be a bum. You were basically going to end up on the street. We had 10% unemployment. We got a lot of bad advice about, there was none of this follow your dreams shit, right? It was all literally like, you need to go and you need to go and be a responsible human being. But for me, like, I was told, yeah, you could get into art. I wanted to, like, I'll be a graphic designer, right? So I applied to. Unfortunately, at the time, the only place that did it back then was the Queensland College of Art. And then they took like 30 people. And, so the reality was that unless you'd already done 2 or 3 years of an arts degree, you probably weren't going to get in. So long story short, for me, I had that and I went, no, okay, obviously it's not going to happen. You go off, you find work. I was lucky enough to fall into a career in the family business. Very fortunate with that, but it was definitely not what I envisaged doing. But I've sort of taken that forward as far for the last X number of years. But it wasn't so. Like, you have work, you have family, you have other things that get in the way. I stopped drawing for quite a while. Probably at least 20 years. Wow. And I think it was only about 2017. Like, I got into other stuff. I got into a band. I did, like, other creative outlets. Like, I wanted to try things and do other things, and I did that. But it wasn't until about 2017 that I kind of was like, you know what? I do have, like, a modicum of talent. I probably could pick it up again really quickly if I wanted to get drawing again. And so I ended up doing, like, this Inktober challenge, and that kind of got me going. And then I was like, well, what other subject matter do I like that I think I could do, and what do I like, in terms of, what my interests are. And so I started doing some Transformers figures. And I think the first ones I did were the Constructicons, because I was just like, I was like, oh yeah, they're a good crew, so I started doing that, and then just basically kept going. And I think, part of it also was, when I went to, when I actually got a repertoire big enough to feel like I could go to a convention, I realized when my first Supanova, I had all these people coming up to me saying, like, oh my God, Transformers art. Nobody else there was doing it. You got 20,000 stalls all selling kawaii stickers and bits and bobs and bracelets and stuff like that. And, all love to everybody there, but there was a fandom there that was not huge, but it was dedicated. And people were coming up to me going, I can't believe, thankfully, I finally found some Transformer stuff. So in a way, I kind of went, well, I'm going to double down here. Like, if there's a need, then that's where I'm going to put my focus on, right? So I and for me it wasn't a stretch because I enjoy doing it. So it's a niche that I've kind of just gone with. And the funny thing is that every con that I do, I'm not just getting 50-year-old guys coming up to the booth. I'm getting young girls now, right? Like that are like 18 or 19, or these young kids that are like just discovering it through their parents, or they've gone and watched Transformers 1 or something like that. Fucking bloody Skyfire. Everybody wants Skyfire. I did like 2 or 3 Skyfires in a row. You know, like I could pretty much draw that bloke off by heart now. But it's just interesting to see the fandom, like, you know, like we're getting this whole new generation of people, these younger people that are discovering it or they're into it. And, you know, like, honestly, like most of my commissions, 8 out of 10 commissions that I get are from girls like between like 15 and 25. You know, like, and I think that is freaking cool. That is so cool. You know, like I just, you know, so anyway, that's the story. I went away from drawing for a long time. I came back.
Yeah.
And then I found this niche, and then it's kind of like the great thing about Transformers is it's such a wide tapestry. You know, there's like hundreds of characters. So you can, you know, apart from when you get people saying, "Can I get Skyfire again? Or can I get Optimus Prime?" I enjoy actually drawing some of the really more obscure characters, and that kind of leads back to the UK thing, you know, which we can touch on later. But you know, there's a lot of characters out there in that space that you can go through a lot of them, and you don't feel like you're repeating yourself constantly because you've just got, well, I haven't drawn one of Windcharger, for example. I'll start drawing one of him, you know. So yeah, that's I think that's what I like about it is that I'm not repeating myself all the time. I feel like I can go, well, who can I draw this week? Or, you know, there's always be somebody out there that goes, yeah, I love that character. And it's like, you know, so yeah, that's kind of the story, you know.
Certainly going through your portfolio. And let me say this, I'll throw some of the comments up on the screen because you definitely, you've definitely got talent. And I can't believe you stepped away from this in 20 years, right? Grimlock Boss, he loves it. He said, me, Grimlock likey. Spartan loves it. You know, Merchants of Venus love it. Like, you know, you're getting some really, and I'm not sure if these people have been exposed to your art before, but you're definitely getting some new fans here tonight. Or, you know,
thank you, everybody. Yeah, it means a lot. And, thank you very much.
When I was going through your portfolio, obviously there's the main characters here, but and I had his name in my head, but I've promptly forgotten it. Not really. The other guy. Someone help me out here.
Ironworks? I don't know what his name is.
Ironworks. Yeah, so you know, that was one that, you know, when I first started drawing again, that was when the Netflix Siege stuff, the toy line started coming out, right? And I saw this guy in the shop, and I went, oh, I like this guy, and I don't know who he is. Turns out he was a MicroMaster platform, you know, you know, Foundry come thing, right? But he had such a cool look, and I work in mining and metals, and you know, with my day job, right? You know, so I was like, this guy looks cool. Like, to be honest, he looks more like a Decepticon, and I was like, I really want to draw that because a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing in this character is stuff that I deal with in real life. So, you know, everybody, you know, to be honest, that one doesn't sell very well, but for me, I really enjoyed it because I was like, wow, he could have like a blowtorch, and he could have like he's a foundry, so he could have a blowtorch and an arc welder, and he's got a crane hook, you know, like it just, you know, I was like, this guy's great, you know, like, you know, so I love that, you know, like you could just look at a new bot and go like, wow, no one else is going to know who this guy is, but I'm going to draw it, you know. So
but there's different levels of character appreciation, right? Like there's characters that you know and you love and you grow up with, and there's an emotional attachment. But then you get to characters like Ironworks, and you know, you just go, that's a great design, or Acid Storm, and you're like, that is a brilliant color. Like it goes down to it. And
that's the thing, you know, like, you know, and there was Acid Storm's great. I was like, I don't know what he does, but I'm just going to draw him in the rain. He's obviously can create rain or do something. So, you know, it adds some sort of, you know, like extra, you know, I love the fact that like all the characters, what I love about Transformers is that you got so many characters that have, you know, these special powers, you know, like, and I love the fact that that's kind of what makes them unique. And, you know, I think, you know, for me, when I'm trying to draw one, I'm looking at what is this character? What can he do that nobody else can do, right? And how can I display that in the picture, to try and sort of, convey this guy's special talent. So, it's where's the cigarette? I'm gonna light one up soon, don't worry. and for all you people out there, they're gonna go, he's got bots in the room and he's smoking in the room. I'm never gonna sell them, so don't worry. It's not
you don't happen to have a collection of smoke screens in there. If you got a collection of smoke screens, they could be authentic,
yes, actual smoke
Stingor,
screens.
like Stingor and Mod 2. They'll be like, oh, he smells like smoke. That's what it is. That's his special power.
Yep.
But we're doing an episode coming up on the 19th with the Triptychon guy, right? Single character collectors. And what I've found in the fandom and seen in the fandom is that sometimes people find an obscure character. This is not knocking them at all. They find an obscure character and they're like, that's my guy. I want every character. I want to commission artworks of him. That is the guy I'm collecting. Acid Storm, Sunstorm, and that's a really it's an amazing thing because you can find a bot for you, right? And it doesn't have to be one of the mainstay ones that we see every week. It can be someone that's a little bit more obscure. Bertie says he meant in the picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Now tell me how do you actually what's your process for creating these arcs? What kind of materials do you use? Do you draw on? What do you get commissioned on? How do you come up with these I don't know what's the word for it, the mechanics of creating these pictures?
Yeah, so I guess it varies, depending on what. If you're talking about commissions, it's all about what the person wants, and everyone says they come up and say how much for a commission. I'm like, dude, it can be whatever the hell you want. It depends what you want. Do you want it A5, A3? Do you want A2? What do you want it? Do you want the color? Do you want, obviously doing a face picture is different to doing three guys fighting. There's a lot more time and energy that goes into that. So I always just tailor the price to whatever anybody wants. But I'm also very, I want to make sure that whatever I'm doing, that it's what the customer wants because they're the ones coughing up the money, right? So I try to get as much information as I can. If I'm doing a commission, I'll talk to them, it's usually at the con or wherever, and I'll say, what do you want here? Do you want, and it was, so it's kind of a bit of an organic process, and then, we'll agree on something, and then, but sometimes, they'll just say, look, I don't care. And so it's up to me to kind of, come up with something. And in this particular case, the customer just said, can you give me Ratchet? And, I'd done Ratchet a few times at a traditional G1 sort of stuff. And I thought to myself, what if I was to do the IDW version of Ratchet, which, was quite a really, unique design and a bit of a different take on the character. And so I put that to them and, I just messaged them and said, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. That sounds great. So, thankfully I haven't had a situation yet where anyone's gone, nah, that wasn't what I was looking for. So, it's it's one of those things where you got to listen to the customer, but you also need to sometimes you got to go with your gut in terms of what you feel about what the character deserves, and in this case, this one's for a good friend of mine, that is one of his favorite characters was Scorponok, who, was quite a presence in the US run, particularly towards the end. And, it's all about you want the guy to be imposing, right? You want him to be intimidating, he's and he has a very different look to everything else, and you want that presence, so you kind of want that, that's kind of what I was going for there. There's But yeah, it just depends. It's one of those things where like I've had people go, like I love to be like this one here. Like I like drawing a lot of stills from the movie. Like so, what I find is that at a lot of the cons, people, particularly with the rise of AI, they want something like a one-off, unique stuff. So I'll do particular pictures that are prints. So I'll draw it. And so you asked about, what I do. I always draw them by hand. I ink them by hand. And then if I'm going to make prints out of them, then I'll color them in Photoshop, just because that translates better to mass printing, basically, right? But what I found is that doing kind of like one-off little smaller A5 pictures, almost like kind of like stills from the movie or the cartoon, also appeals to a lot of people because they're getting like a one-off. Like that's not a print. That will be a one-off. It won't ever be sold as prints. It's literally like, this is, you own it now. That's the one. And particularly in Melbourne, Melbourne people are really more into that, whereas Brisbane people are more like, yeah, give me the print.
Yeah. A5 nice and compressed too.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is, yeah, and you can bang them out pretty quick, and all you got to do is take a sort of like, yeah, there's a shot from the movie, and I want to replicate that as best I can.
Is A5 the same size as a collector card?
Yeah, it's like a postcard size.
So it's a quarter of A4.
It's half of an A4. Sorry,
half of an A4.
Yeah. So yeah, it's and those are they're always fun, So they and I do enjoy doing those, and I do them with Copic markers. So when I'm doing those, I'll do them with sort of the Copics and probably the other thing that you just put one up there. I guess it's interesting that's sort of come up these days is the concept of these sketch covers where every now and then you'll get a like with the Skybound ones that are coming out now at the moment, every 5 or 10 issues they always do multiple variant covers, but they'll also do like a blank cover, which is just basically white. It's a secondary cover that covers the front and the back of the comic, and it's purely there so that you can buy it and then you can draw your own cover. And it's a great concept because you're actually getting the comic inside, and the artist can draw over the top of it. This was a good one because it was suggested by my good friend Tony Nasso, who's been in the comic game. I went to school with a guy, dear friend of mine, and he suggested this to me because he was like, "So Hound has a hologram gun, and then there's Gem and the holograms, so you could make him like producing Gem, right?" Which was also a Hasbro cartoon in the 80s. And then, of course, we've got the backing band there in the background, and we've got Gears just being grumpy because it's too loud. So that's a I love it. He gives me so many great ideas. And
that's
this
fantastic.
was definitely one of my favorites.
I wanted to put this up because we've got the San Diego Comic-Con crossover with them coming out as well, which I actually like. Uncle Chan asks if you have had a request to recreate Ultra Magnus blowing apart in the '86 movie.
Not until now, Uncle. Not until now. I would definitely be open to that. Although I will say I have very much a soft spot for Ultra Magnus. I really do. Like, I feel that the guy doesn't get enough love. I think they did him dirty in the particularly in the Netflix series. I was kind of bummed about that. I actually really love the character, and I did do a commission. I did one of a one where I love the concept of him coming out of the Magnus armor, and he's the white Optimus Prime underneath, and so I did sort of a sketch cover of kind of on the front. It was replicating the "You Got the Touch" Prime pose, but on the back he's like shedding his armor, and that was kind of something that Dreamwave touched on back in the early 2000s. They sort of had that in one of the comics, and I love the idea that the Magnus armor is something that's sort of over the top of his normal bot mode. So I got a love for Ultra Magnus, but hey, I'm a capitalist. If you want me to draw him blowing up, I'll do it, man.
There you go.
Terminate him.
Yeah. And then junkie on
what sort of
putting
inks do you use, Brad?
Sorry?
What brand of ink do you use?
So I'm mostly using Copic markers. So like for so I'll draw in blue pencil to start with, because I just find that kind of makes it easier to ink over the top of, and you get less rubbish from the lead. And then I'll use kind of micron fine liners for the line artwork.
Yep.
And then for the colors, I'll use Copic markers, and occasionally I might go over the top of that with some Prismacolor pencil, what have you. But I to be honest with you, I'm kind of quite happy just using Copics at the moment. So it just works, and it's they're good for blending. But the funny thing is about with Transformers is you don't really want to do a lot of blending, because you're looking for that cell shade look, from the cartoon. So you get, like you see on tracks there, you kind of want the highlights and the darks, to really pop. So I find that, but they're great, and they work on these sketch covers as well as the blending paper. So yeah, that's pretty much.
Have you ever worked with Posca before?
No, I haven't. No, I've got some, but I have to admit I haven't. No, there's a lot of stuff that I need to try.
You can branch out with Posca instead of going on paper to work on solid things like skateboard decks and shoes. So you can do a pair of Air Jordans with characters on them and then have a nice peak. They just work really well on different surfaces.
Okay, definitely. I'll look into that, because it's interesting. Because I've seen a guy. There was a guy at Supanova a few years back who used to do. He still does it. He does custom custom shoes, basically, with artwork all over him, and he's exceptionally good. I can't remember his name for the life of me right now, but I've often wondered how the hell he did that. So I appreciate the tip.
That would be epic. Can I throw back, Brad, to the younger generation of fans that you said were a lot of your customer base? Like, we want more women in the fandom. I think it's important to have women in the fandom, and it should be welcoming in any fandom that anyone that enjoys the lore or the IP should be welcome. But what kind of work do they kind of tend to pick up from you, or what do you find is their interest in the Transformers franchise, and particularly from your perspective?
Definitely, like, it's for me, like I said earlier, I'm constantly like blown away by, like, you'll just get like these young ladies that are dressed up in cosplay, but they're dressed up as Starscream, but they're wearing like a suit, like that one there. The one on the left was a guy called Sunder. So I had two girls ask me last year if I could draw Sunder, and I was like, Sunder, and I was like, that's IDW, and I had to go back and re-look at it again, and he was like an obscure character that was like, like basically just a nightmare fuel, he could basically torture people. Like, he was like a neurosurgeon or some shit, and it was just, but I had two people ask for it in the same day, and I was like, what the hell's going on here? And then I had two people ask for, two girls asked for Skyfire. And one girl, she asked me, she goes, can you do Skyfire on one of the sketch covers? And I said, yeah. I said, do you want me to do the back cover? And she was like, yeah, that'd be great. I'm like, okay, what do you want on the back cover? And she goes, oh, Cosmos. And I was like, dude, like, like, that's amazing. I love Cosmos. Everyone loves him, So I ended up drawing a picture of like Skyfire on the front and Cosmos on the back, saluting each other. Like, it's like, Cosmos is always up there just on his own, and Skyfire's come up for a bit of a chat. but yeah, no, it's interesting because you see people like the younger girls that they're dressing up like Shockwave, Starscream, Megatron, Prime, and they're doing it really creatively. It's not like they're doing it trying to put on the bot stuff. They're like dressing up with a suit and tie, and the colors are just the color scheme of the character. And
hold up, Shockwave is a transformer. He has a big rack.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's exactly. Cannot see.
Rack.
You want to hide from Shockwave, you just go down the front. Right?
And the arm. Oh,
yeah. No, not at all. But yeah, no, it's quite amazing how like just how many young people are getting into it. It's but yeah, that's the one. Yeah, so it's cool. Like I think for me I couldn't be happier because I don't want to just be talking to 50-year-old dudes all day. Like it's great that
we promise not to take offense, all right? Because
no, not at all. But
we don't even have Stelios. We don't even have Stelios today, and he's our youth card at the moment. So
there you go.
Oh, that's right. Cosmos is brilliant. I love Cosmos. He's such a dude. I love him.
Yeah. And that's but no, it's great. There's I think the more promote them all, I say, bring everybody in. It should be a broad church. It runs the risk of running out of steam, but I think as long as every time I go to one of these cons and I get young people coming up to me and wanting to chat, just I think it's great. Gives me hope.
Encouraging the younger generation is part of what everyone should do, and we talked about this in our fandom episode, keeping fandom fun. The way the franchise survives is constant evolution, new iterations, and encouragement of fans, young and old, and that's the way it keeps going. I know you missed Stelios, Spartan. He's winging his way back from Melbourne. He didn't visit any of us people in Melbourne. I don't know, bit of a snob, really. But he will be back, and he didn't give us a note from Mum that he wasn't going to be in class today, but we've given him an absence and noted it on the so we've got Charger here, and this is another one of those great, great character, great design. He didn't really get his time to shine in the G1 cartoon. Because he's got a power set that could really kick some butt. It's a beautiful picture of it. It's reminiscent of, and the way that you color these, for me as a complete Neanderthal when it comes to this stuff, it reminds me of watercolors, like those kind of like fluid color sets. It really makes the characters come alive. So it's fantastic.
It's definitely one of those. It's a medium that you can use to replicate the cell shading of the cartoons. I think which is kind of iconic. And it's definitely like you say, the goal is to kind of take the character and kind of go like, I always like Windcharger was like, we all saw the poor bugger, dead on the floor in the movie, and I thought to myself, oh, what if I drew him like with his last stand, and he's reaching out with his magnetic hands, because he's one of those, though, he's got the magnets, right? So, and then it kind of became more of like, as I drew it, I kind of changed my mind halfway through to where I was like, what if he's just reaching out going, please don't kill me. So he's kind of getting blown up. But either way, I just like looking into those little nuances of the storylines and going, what about the stuff we don't see on the screen? What about bits and pieces that like might happen off camera? What would have happened? And I like going into that, that kind of headspace, when I'm coming up with ideas,
Well, you made a great point about the Marvel UK, and we'll bring out more Marvel UK covers and comics in a second. But it's like the development of a storyline in a movie compared to a mini series compared to a full series. You just have more time. You have more time, more depth to be able to peel back those layers and really explore it. And with a weekly frequency, and we're going to talk about some of the challenges from your perspective as an artist with a weekly kind of series, but from a story perspective, you can really dive into it quite deeply, and you can give the characters time, right? You can give them time and exposure, and that's one of the best things about it.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I think one of the if I'll leave with my chin here, and I can probably go off on a tangent, but like one of the great things about the UK run was it gave us the Wreckers, right? And so like you look at the picture of Cup, right? But the thing I loved about the UK run was that early on they came up with the concept of the Wreckers being an Autobot crack commando group, right? There we go, and there were characters in there that were not even toys, right? So we talk about, you want to talk about, how it's influenced things, well, there's Impactor, right? Sorry, I'm not good with. And so Impactor, he's off to the left of the screen. He was the original leader of the Wreckers. And, we're getting, what's happening is we're getting toys now that were based on some of the obscure characters of that UK run. And, we're also talking about guys like Emirate Zarin, right? He was the Autobot leader on Cybertron. He was like the underground resistance sort of leader. And he was actually the guy that came up with the Wreckers and recruited them. And it wasn't until I think last year, or perhaps just late the year before, we finally got a toy of the guy. But he was an interesting character because he was like, he'd been around for eons and eons and eons. But the funny thing was, you never saw him transform because he hadn't transformed in thousands of years. So the shock to his system would kill him, basically, right? So, when he's in danger, he's like, I could probably survive if I transform into my alt mode, but I could die if I do that, So, like, you had all these great, sort of unique characters that the UK run brought to the table. And now all of a sudden we're seeing them come out as actual figures. There's another one here, that came out as a 2-pack, which was a guy called Flame, who was, you could say, well, he looks a bit like Hot Rod, but he was a mad Autobot scientist. And, one of the best, UK stories is one called City of Fear, where he basically reanimated all these dead Transformers and brought them back to life, including Impactor. So it was like, and the Wreckers were, obviously dealing with that, right? So, the fact is we're kind of, you're getting, these characters that were designed only for the comics in the UK, but due to the, demand that the fact that they've never had a figure, Hasbro's actually, even if it's only on a chug scale, they're bringing them out, recognizing that there's a, there's a desire to have them. And, for me, I'm like, fuck, we're finally getting a Emirate Zarin figure, like as a collector, I'm like, I'm grabbing that with both hands. Thank you very much. So, that's kind of the influence that it's still having to this day is some of those obscure characters, So, I think that's what I think part of what the UK brought to the table that, the US comic, stayed more true to the toys, whereas the UK, here we are, so they brought out. So this is and they've done a pretty good job, like it's like he looks pretty damn.
They were creating new characters.
Yeah, they were creating new characters, and this guy, he wanted to turn Cybertron into a jet engine, activate these engines and make it travel through the galaxy, but it was going to blow the joint up. So, he was a bit of a mad scientist, but he was an Autobot. Just good little obscure characters like that kind of that was my jam. I was like, yeah, this is cool. And so when I see these figures come out, I'm like, thank you very much. I'll grab them. So it fills out a spot on the my records behind me are finally complete. So it's great.
So something I remember, Brad, was Death's Head getting a shot in the UK comics, and that was a link to the 2000 AD comics, and I was like, have they released a figure of Death's Head yet or not?
Yeah, no,
yes,
they haven't.
have.
Not they have in the Marvel.
I have them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hasbro.
He was a convention exclusive, but like I don't know if many people picked him up or not, but I picked him up so cheap. It was like $30 or something. Like
wow.
Yeah,
I tried getting him on through Pop Culture or whatever it was, and then they cancelled. They said, "Oh, we're not getting him anymore." But he's definitely on my list because he'll scale really well. Yeah, which is it's always interesting because something you never thought about was the fact that like this guy must be huge if he's the same size as the Transformers, But like they worked their way around that in the comics, but. There was so many great stories with Death's Head in the UK run. Like he was basically a gun for hire. He was a bounty hunter, but he preferred the term freelance peacekeeping agent. I think it was. And he always ended everything with yes. There's like. And the funny thing was, like one day he'd be working for he'd be like working for. He'd be getting paid to kill Rodimus Prime, and then the next minute Prime would turn around and say, "Okay, bring me the heads of Cyclonus and Scourge, and I'll pay you double." And he'd be like, "Yes, absolutely, yes." There's so many great stories with him in it that they had in the book.
And just before we had Death's Head 2 on the cover.
I have to admit I didn't get into that one. I didn't go for that.
No, he got his own spin-off comics, so they're the spin-off ones, so they're not Transformer related as much. They're just bounty hunting things.
Yeah. But he seemed to fit in so seamlessly into that UK storyline. Like he was just, and he really did. He had some big things. Like he kills Shockwave. He just absolutely blows the crap out of him and then crushes his brain box. So he actually has like a lot of influence in the storylines.
He was part of the Unicron one, I believe, as well. So he was fighting with everyone against Unicron.
Yeah. No, he was great because he's in the Time War stuff. He goes back in time, and poor old Bumblebee goes up to him and says, "Hey, how you going?" And just gets blown apart. But like he because he's hunting Galvatron, I think, at that point, so he has to go back in the past to get him. But yeah, just love the fact that he's kind of like, just whoever's paying him the most on the day, he'll just go with the flow. That's it. This is a great g'day Aussie reference.
G'day. Aussie junkie.
Yeah. I thought I'd include that one for the g'day.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, he's a really good character. He added so much to that to that series, and how they made it work with the IP. Someone did a deal, whatever it was, but it was. Yeah, he definitely added so much value to the storylines. He really did.
There's Aussie Bot popping up in the background. His tone doesn't really match what's happening in the foreground, does it? He's just like,
yeah.
Can I just pop in? What are you doing? I'm just executing someone. That's all right.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a really good. That was an example. We talk about UK stuff. It was a great example of the storylines where they took the movie stuff and expanded it. And that was, they had a story where basically Unicron's head ends up on junk or whatever, and then he enslaves with his mind control. He enslaves all the Junkians to start building him a new body, basically, right? And he's got a whole bunch of schemes going on, as part of it. And that was the same storyline where they kind of melded the the origin story into it, where Unicron explains the whole business between him and Primus and why he kind of had a mad on for Cybertron was because, he and Primus were like these kind of gods in another astral plane, and they were fighting each other for, however many years. And the long story short was that Primus tricked him into going into the physical world, and then they ended up like putting their essence into two meteorites or, asteroids or whatever. And then Unicron ended up, taking over his asteroid, turning it into a planet that could transform, whereas Primus's vision was different. He didn't want to transform. He made himself into Cybertron, but he populated the world with the Transformers that they would fight the battle for him, right? And what he didn't foresee was the fact that they would have a civil war, right? So that was the difference between the two, between Unicron and Primus, and that was a really cool take on it. They ended up bringing that into the US storyline as well towards the end. But yeah, it's great artwork.
I'm going to diverge for a second because I want to give a shout out to me, Grimlock Boss. I pulled this up for him. He loves himself a bit of Grimlock action, so I wanted to bring this up for him as a shout out and a thank you for him. I also wanted to ask, we've got a few people, Verdi, Uncle Chan, obviously once that Magnus pull apart cover, how do people contact you for commissions? We know you've got your Instagram page, BP Arts Brisbane, you've got your Facebook page, but what's the best way for people to contact you for commission, or just follow you in general?
Yeah, just follow me on Instagram, and I don't have a full web page yet. I'm still trying to figure that out. I do have a Redbubble store, so there is a if you go into Redbubble, there's a BP Arts online store where you can get most of these designs on a T-shirt or a coffee mug, or you can even get a shower curtain if you want. Or you get they get everything on there. But yeah, the best way for a commission is just send me a message on Instagram or Facebook at BP Arts Brisbane, and I'm happy to just discuss what you're looking for and what you're after, and we go from there. But that's the best way to get a hold of me. Or just come and see me if you're at Supanova. Come and see me in the con, and we can do that too. So yeah.
You could shower with Grimlock, or Josh, you could shower with Shockwave in his massive rack.
Exactly. Mate, you can get everything on there. Phone covers, this, that. You can get Duna covers. Oh, man, you turn up, It's just like they got everything on
What's
there.
what are you listed as on Redbubble, Brad?
I'm pretty sure. Let me.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
I should actually know this. Yeah, I should actually know this. That's a good question. Actually, I think it might be B Pickers. I think might be B Pickers. The Pickers. Let me just have a look here.
I've got you.
Oh, you found it? Okay, great.
Yeah. I'll chuck the link into the chat for you guys so you can explore that. Maybe get yourself some shoes or shirts or shower curtains or coffee mugs and stuff. There's some beautiful work on there. Throwing out to the panel while I just chuck this into the chat. Does anyone have any?
Just a shower curtain.
Would she ready, or would she really secretly appreciate it? That's the question, right?
Yeah, that's right. Reminds me of that meme where the lady says, I'd like to start introducing toys into the bedroom, and the guy's like, yeah, right on. And the next minute he's got Optimus Prime in the bedroom.
This is your just for future reference, Brad and audience. This is your Redbubble URL.
Thanks for reminding me. Oh man!
just so we can kind of keep it going, and I will find out where I am.
That's cool. Is that with Snake Eyes?
Yeah, I guess like those ones are just like what I was talking about earlier, where like, you know, like I just, before I get about a month out from the con, I'll just start whacking out a few of these, you know, sort of freeze frame, you know, pictures from the movie or from the cartoon. And, you know, I like to try and pick ones that kind of, when someone looks at it, they go straight up, oh yeah, that's that, you know, like, and yeah.
You need to add a microphone to it. Big microphone, holding big microphone. He needs
a microphone.
He could be Cybertronic Spree. He could be
like a wrecking ball.
Man, we've got to get those guys out here, man. Like we've so got to try and get them out here to a con or just have a concert. Like they are so good.
Yeah,
they're just incredible.
Well, they've got passports apparently. I read somewhere online, so they can finally start touring in Canada because I think they're touring.
I saw that.
So they mentioned that they've got their passports ready to go. So
got to book them.
If you're watching this show and you haven't checked out Cybertronic Spree, please check them out. They do such.
They are amazing,
and they've evolved as a band. You look at their stuff compared to now, and they've evolved as a band. Fantastic.
So good.
So good.
18 Wheels of Justice.
Yeah,
I appreciate the artwork.
That one doesn't. Yeah, that one doesn't sell very well, unfortunately, because not many people get it. I think I got a little bit too clever for my own good there. Because when I first drew that, it was like, you know, that episode where Prime gets pretty much really messed up by Megatron. And then Huffer says, I'll take your trailer for you, Prime. And he's like, oh, you're a good friend, Huffer. Oh, you know, and I was like, so I was thinking, what would Huffer do after that? Where would he go with his trailer? Like, he's just going to hang out and, you know, look all cool. And so I kind of did that. And then I was like, I don't know what to put for the words. And then it reminded me of that show that was like one season and done back in the 90s called 18 Wheels of Justice.
Brad, you know the blue sky red earth technique you did on the lettering there?
Yeah.
That works really well on chrome parts. I used to do Warhammer painter and chrome, you paint that blue sky red earth on all the chrome parts and it looks like metal. Like people just goes non-metallic metals is another name for
make
anything
chrome look like it's real. And it tricks the brain.
And I gotta say, Huffer like he looks ready for action. That's a
Well, that was because that was off the toy that came out in the I think it was the Siege. You know, like the Siege or the Earthrise, you know, sort of run they did a few years back, and they turned Huffer into a mean-looking dude in that one. And I really liked the design, so I was like, "Oh, I'm going to draw that," you know. And then, it's just, you know,
there's got to be a Huffer fan out there somewhere. Someone out there. This is their dream.
There's always something for somebody. So please buy this from next time because nobody else.
Notice it's a Nemesis Huffer, not the real Huffer. It's a Nemesis Huffer.
It's pretty cool.
Red and black.
This is Huffer.
Yeah, nice.
They got a lot of work out of that mold because they made pipes and they did a whole bunch of other weird ones as well.
100%. All right, let's get into some storylines for Marvel UK. Let's get into some storylines for Marvel UK because that was something for tonight, and a lot of things including Marvel UK. So we've got time 2006. So talk to me about this storyline and.
The Target 2006 was like that was pretty much like when the movie. I think it actually came out just before the movie. I think they basically were like, "Oh, thanks. Sorry, my bride is just giving me another beer." But yeah, they brought it out just before the movie came out, and so at the time, people didn't know that Galvatron was Megatron, and so they had all of a sudden this dude comes from the future, he comes back, and I don't want to spoil all the stuff if you don't want to, read the comics, or you haven't read them yet and you want to read them. But basically, like, he comes back because he's trying to figure out a way to escape from Unicron, right? And so Ultra Magnus goes back to obviously apprehend him and, take him back to his time or whatever it is. And throughout that whole storyline, like that whole, there was not just this particular story, but several other ones. Ultra Magnus, and again, this is kind of why I like the guy. Like, he has some absolute humdinger battles with Galvatron, like absolute, like, brutal beatdowns, and more often than not, he gets beaten. And it's not until kind of later in the series that he ends up, like, he develops a bit of a complex about it. He actually is like, I just can't beat this guy. Like, he's just so insanely powerful. And he kind of has a story arc where he ends up, like, basically just going like, bugger this, and he ends up beating him, but they had some absolute humdinger battles, and they were brutal. They were like just absolute going toe to toe. And this is an iconic cover of splash page here from Jeff Senior. And Jeff Senior, he's done the commissions of these, and he's redone them over the years, because it's one of the most iconic pictures where you got Galvatron, Ultra Magnus is taking him for a ride, and it's such a great it's a really good storyline. Obviously, like, it involves, you got the old time travel trope, and then they had, when somebody from the future comes to the past, an equivalent person needs to go into limbo to replace them. Otherwise you can't have the same sort of matter existing. So, if Rodimus Prime turned up, then Optimus Prime would disappear. And then of course you got Megatron in the past, you got Galvatron there, you got, like, it's all, and at the time when it came out, it was all, the movie was just coming out, so there was like all these reveals happening, and it was but yeah, glorious art, glorious storytelling. Simon Furman as usual on the storyline. A lot of it was Jeff Senior.
This panel here, I'll tear off your head, tear off your head and rip the power cord from the twitching husk of your corpse.
Yeah.
Magnus' windscreen torn out, and he's like, all right, let's go for a ride.
The thing about Galvatron in the comics was, like, he was truly insane. Like, he wasn't just like, a Megatron in a new body. He was totally insane. Like, but he was very overpowered. Like, it was tough work trying to get a hold of that dude. Like, he was just when it gets to the point in Time Wars where it happened sort of a few years later, it took the Decepticons and the Autobots teaming up to try and bring him down, and he's just ripping people's heads off, and, like, it's like, it's very visceral.
They touched on his insanity in the cartoon series a little bit. That's why I always liked Galvatron, because he was just insane. And he quite often threatened to just kill his own troops. Like, if Scourge and Cyclonus said no, he'd just like, I'll just kill you. Yeah. And they quickly learned not to. And he was just, he'd just go off on insane rants. And I was just like, that's awesome.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's an awesome villain right there.
Yeah. By the end of his time in the UK run, he was completely unhinged. There's a great, in Time Wars, there's this awesome like issue, like the very climax. Optimus Prime, the Power Master Optimus Prime, uses the power of the Matrix to come out of limbo, where he was sort of, been displaced, to come into back to the present and fight Galvatron. And it was like, we're finally going to see Galvatron versus not just Optimus Prime, but Power Master Optimus Prime. And I was just like, and there's this great panel drawn by Lee Sullivan where you got Optimus Prime enters the fray, and you see Galvatron with half his face blown off. He's leaping at him like, at last. And then, like, you just get this great battle in the next issue. But because Galvatron's so unhinged, he's not sure whether he's fighting Optimus or Rodimus or what he's, like he's just completely off with the fairies, But yeah, no, it's they're just great storylines. Yeah.
And Brad, whenabouts did that period happen in our timeline?
Shit, that would have been, I reckon, about 88. I'm going to say
88.
maybe 88, kind of, 88, 89, something like
what
that.
would have come to a big calamity? And do you know the period where it ended as far as a regular input?
Oh, I think I'm pretty sure around about 1990, I think was when it kind of wrapped up,
Yeah.
You'll have to forgive me. I'm going to run off to the bathroom real quick. I'll be like 30 seconds.
Crocodile.
Just talk amongst yourselves quietly for a second.
We will have a brief intermission. That's all right. We go all right. There's some talk about beers in the chat. We haven't got a sponsorship yet, and then we're not looking for an alcohol sponsor, but you can absolutely compare what drinks you're having. Whilst we're doing that, though, guys, I want to take a brief little interlude from our chat and talk about our subscriber draw. I'm going to come back to Marvel UK in a minute. So we had an initial goal when we launched this channel, 86. Yeah, when you got to go, you got to go. 86 subscribers was our first goal, to launch this channel, get a foundation, and just see, if it's just going to be the 6 of us having a chat, or we can actually make something of it. And we had 2 prizes donated by Michael Vella from his personal collection, which is very generous of him. And so we've got 2 winners. We've drawn 2 winners from the show, from the subscriber list. Thank you, because we've hit nearly 100. And our first winner is Miles, 501st. So Miles, drop us a line with your mailing address. We're going to send you this snarky little bumblebee statue. And you can chuck that in your collection somewhere, and that is your win. So congratulations, Miles. I hope you enjoy that prize, and thank you for being in our early subscriber list. We really appreciate everyone who subscribed to us early. And our second one is Aaron Moncrief. If you are watching, catch us on the replay. Please drop us a line, and we will send this out to you in the mail. You got yourself a handy dandy little Hot Wheels Bumblebee, and we really appreciate it. We're planning to do more in the future as we get more stretch goals underway, but this one meant a lot for us because we started from nothing, and we're already loving what we're doing, and we love the community that comes on board and supports us. So we really appreciate it. And we've got our guest back, so there you go. That worked out perfectly.
Excellent. And now here's a few short messages from our sponsor.
Yeah, and here's a few short messages from our sponsor. If you would like to sponsor this show and this quick bathroom break as your ad space, you are more than welcome to reach out to us as well.
Yeah, you missed out on me putting on a song and a dance while you were gone. It was very
damn it.
It was a good one.
Damn it.
So we've got a nice cover photo of Galvatron and Optimus going hell to hell. He's got a slight eye injury going on there. And then we have this. And
yes. Yeah.
Brutal. You gents were talking about it in terms of some brutal artwork. And some of this is a bit of nightmare fuel.
Yeah, so this is Lee Sullivan, which is he definitely, like I said earlier, he's probably my favorite artist actually, because he really drew a very good balance between sort of the robotic side, that the Jeff Senior side of things, but also like making stuff feel organic and fluid. And basically there was a whole big time rift here where he ends up getting sucked up, and that was the end of him in the comics. So it's pretty brutal.
So Brad, who's doing the sucking?
Yeah, basically this big giant time rift. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Yeah, it was sucking him up. Yeah, but the funny thing was, after like the storyline, what happened was Megatron kills Cyclonus, right? You're like, oh man, that's brutal as well. Like he basically at that stage, Cyclonus and Scourge were target masters, and so they had like the little Nebulon dudes who were like humans, like and turned into their guns. And Megatron crushes Nightstick, like just basically says, "I'll take away your gun," and crushes him. And I'm like, and he's like, "Nightstick, no!" And then he's like, "And then I'll take your head," and he rips his head off, Cyclonus' head off, and that creates more of a time rift because they weren't supposed to be back in the past. And so you basically got like this whole Philadelphia experiment kind of thing going on, where there's a rift in time and space, and it requires things to be corrected. So it ends up sort of, sucking up all the people that weren't supposed to be there. Yeah, definitely. Like it was a good storyline because they kind of the Decepticons and the Autobots had to come together to get rid of these, get rid of Galvatron. It was all about like, got to get rid of this dude. It's going to rip the whole universe apart. So yeah, it was all very good stuff. But great issue, great artwork, great storyline. Yeah, just another one of those classics. That sounds like it sucks. Yes, it does, sweetie.
I'll stay away from those time rifts.
Death by suck. I don't know. Is that a bad way to go? Wreckers. Yeah. So the Wreckers were, and you've got speaking of obscure characters, you got Rack and Ruin.
Rack and Ruin, yeah. So Rack and Ruin, I was determined to get the whole Wreckers crew, right? So in toy form. So I managed to get them all, except nobody's ever put out a figure of Rack and Ruin. So I ended up getting two figures. I can't remember who it was, right? And I ended up giving it to my father-in-law, who was a model maker, and I said, "Can you like chop these dudes' arms off, connect them up, and paint them and make a custom build for me?" And he did. But he didn't quite get the head right. The head ended up kind of looking like sort of looked like the dog out of bloody Doctor Who. But I'll still take it. It was an amazing sort of job. So like it was, until we get that'll do the job. Yeah, Rack and Ruin, great character. Like just these two twins joined at the arms, and yeah, great character. Like there was one issue where Galvatron's like, fighting the Wreckers, and he says, "You really are the most laughable of this sorry bunch, Rack and Ruin." And he's like, "Oh, Galvatron, they say two heads are better than one." They shoot him in the chest, and he's like, "You insufferable worm, there'll be 2 million pieces of you in a minute." It's like classic, So yeah, good again. Another UK character that was never a toy,
There's a Rack and Ruin toy in Cyberverse.
Yeah, there is. Yeah,
it's a bit different.
It's a bit different. Yeah.
It's just two heads.
Yeah, that's right. It's like one body but two heads. Whereas I'm like, no, you got to have the Siamese connection, bro. I'm a purist. I want it to be what I remember. Yeah. The other funny thing was Broadside. Broadside was a wrecker, but Broadside in the UK comics looked nothing like the toy. He was actually what he looks like there in the front of that picture, the red and the blue guy, was the original Broadside prototype that they never actually ended up producing. But because they gave that to the UK guys and said, "This is one of the triple changes we're going to do," then they changed it at the last minute, but they'd already published him in a totally different head, totally different color scheme. Again, they haven't produced. I know that some of the third-party guys are doing that now. They're starting to do that particular design, but yeah, it was an interesting thing there where they were like, "Yep, use this guy. Here's what he looks like," and then the next minute, like, "Oh no, sorry, now he's totally grey and has a totally different head."
What was his temperament like in the UK run? Because Broadside, he has his issues with his alt modes in terms of. I think that's part of what gets him as a character.
Yeah, that was the funny thing. You never really saw him much transform in the UK stuff. If they did, it was only ever as a plane. But for the most part, he was just part of the Wreckers, which was all just them robot mode fighting whoever they were fighting. But yeah, so yeah, definitely another little interesting take on sort of how that played out.
Brad, did you ever encounter Battle Beasts in your UK comics run?
Ooh, Battle Beast. Yeah, oh yeah, there we go. There's that Time Wars. Yeah, it's just like poor old Rack and Ruin getting blown apart there. Battle Beasts. Who are they? Remind me.
The
again.
little animal figurines, like anthropomorphic animals. And in Japan, they had a rub sign that was either Autobot or Decepticon. But when they got released in the West, we got either wood, fire, or water, I think, were the main rub sign result. So they sort of disconnected it in our modern reality, like our reality. But in Japan, it was like fully Transformers spin-off.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, no, I have to admit that boat left and I wasn't on that boat.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I've heard the name. I just haven't. Yeah, I have to admit, maybe if I saw him, I'd probably be up there. But I was certainly, I'm very much a kind of a G1 dude. Like, and the funny thing is, like, you know, there's a thing. The good thing about Transformers stuff is that, you know, there's a place there for everybody. You know, like just because I didn't watch Beast Wars, you know, that doesn't mean I'm not happy for you that they made the movie recently, right? You know, like because you're just a victim of when you were born and growing up, right? And if that's what you're watching, you know, like that's your jam. You know, if that's your jam, bro.
I did a dig, and someone talked about Animorphs in our group chat about being the first spin-off. And I was like, no, wait up. I swear Beast Wars, but not Beast Wars, Battle Beasts came in around the Headmasters time in Japan. And I found an episode and I posted in our group chat. So there's an episode of Beast Planet or something in Headmasters, which is a bad dub, but it's still Transformers G1.
Where did you find that dub?
YouTube searches on YouTube. Yeah.
It's like a weird fan dub.
It's a fan dub, but it still shows the animation from Japan of the G1 Headmasters hanging out with the Battle Beasts, and it's like, this is good, this is glorious. And I searched my ass off looking for some original Japanese versions with the rub sign intact, rare as dog's balls, like hard to find. So I'm thinking of getting the stickers, the rub signals, off eBay from Repro Labels or whoever's still making them. Getting some vintage Battle Beasts and putting the sticker on, depending on their racial characteristics. Because all the reptiles are sort of naughty, all the mammals were kind of cool. They're good guys. So it's easy to match up the stickers with the different groupings.
Yeah.
Battle Beast special on one. There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, look at
this is from Battle Beast Battleground. It took me a little bit to find it because Battle Beast is also a prominent character in the Invincible universe and a complete badass. So I had to hunt a little bit deeper for Marvel UK Battle Beast. But they're Transformers adjacent, I guess, or they're in there somewhere.
So the first side chain. That's amazing. Killer Carp, King Leo, and the gorilla. So fire, water, and earth.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
So they're definitely an interesting take, and they never really took off though, did they?
No. A couple of years, flash in the pan, then disappear.
Yep. Transformers had the bot shots too, which were the little Transformer bots that had the different symbols on them, and you'd run them into each other, and it was kind of playing that earth, fire, water. I don't want to say hard. Yeah. I wanted to say hard for a second because I was reverting back to Captain Planet, but it wasn't hard. Hard. The one character in Captain Planet that everyone was like, not so much.
Yeah.
There's a combiner crossover we don't have.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Hang on.
5 Transformers.
I've got to double up here. But I wanted to go through. So if we're talking crossovers and adjacent, we've got Action Force here, which is GI Joe. The Action Force was the name for GI Joe. And you ever get into that, Brad? You ever get into like Action Force in the Marvel in the UK?
Well, no, yeah. The funny thing was like GI Joe came out not long after Transformers in terms of the toys and stuff, right? And I remember do you remember when you used to buy the figures and you get the little points on the back, right?
Yeah.
And you could mail them away, and you would get one of the Omnibox, which are behind me here. And you get, if you bought enough stuff and you got enough points, you could mail it away to Hasbro. They'd send you a free gift, which was like this, these Autobot reinforcements, toys, and so then they had you on the on the record, right? so then
That's
they would
right.
send you, then they were like, we're going to bring it.
Josh has already blown our G rating out of the water. He's left now because we had to send him into timeout. It's all good.
I can't believe I made it this long, to be honest. But but they go, okay, we've got you on record. So they would mail you out. They mailed me out a poster of GI Joe and said, hey, because you love Transformers, Hasbro is here for you. We're bringing out GI Joe. But they never really brought it out with the full gusto in Australia. At least not to my memory. I never really if they did, the cartoon definitely didn't make it out here around about the same time until later on or whatever. And so the boat left and I wasn't on the boat with that. And I could be wrong. Maybe I just missed it completely, but that's not to say I don't like GI Joe. I'm reading the latest stuff from Skybound. I think it's great, and I'm learning about it. Yeah.
Well, that's going to be my question because you had a great picture before with Trax and Matt Tracker.
Oh, Mask, yeah.
Yeah, Mask. And what's your feel? We're going to do an Energon Universe episode in the future, but what's your take on this kind of melding of Mask and GI Joe and Transformers, and maybe not the next one I'll show, but what's your take on it?
I think it's great. I mean, look, it lends itself to it because it's all they're the label mates. They're all in the same, licensing IP, so that's easy. You can make it work, and I think they have made it work really well so far. Bringing Mask into it as well, I think is great. I think I'm all for it, because I was into all of it really. Mask was probably my next, behind Transformers when I was a kid. Mask was the next one where that was the next bunch of toys that I got, and I enjoyed the cartoon. I loved it. It was really good. So anything like that, I'm all for it. I think what Skybound and Eastman is doing a really, really awesome job. It's a different take on the whole thing. It's very visceral. It's very bold. In terms of both the art style and the story writing, I think it's a very bold, visceral, sort of raw take on things, and I just think it's great. I didn't know what to expect when I first saw it, and I think 2 issues I was hooked. I was like, this is great. It was very different, but a very, very visceral, very raw, very, very just bold storytelling. Like the first issue of Transformers Skybound, Bumblebee gets blown apart in the head by Starscream. Straight up, they're declaring, they're putting a stake in the ground and saying, no one's safe. This is it's like Game of Thrones, in the Transformers universe. So, I'm looking forward to the Mask stuff.
Do you think we will ever see Battle Beasts introduced into the Skybound universe? or these guys, right?
Hey, we live in. Where
did I put it? Hang on, I gotta find it first. Visionaries. There's
Visionaries. Yes. I have to admit, never got into the Visionaries. I will say that was one of the backup stories they had late in the day. But yeah, look, hey, we live in strange times, right?
Yeah, we do. We do.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, may as well bring back.
do you think, Josh?
Let's bring back the supernatural. So we're out of evidence.
That is supernatural, not a visionary. Yeah. Yeah.
Here we go.
Oh, classic. Like
It's
I
the punk
said,
wolf.
we live in a strange world at the moment, so nothing's off limits. Hey.
Oh, Brad, it's going backwards. They used to bring out really good quality holograms in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
And these days, the holographic arts have taken a nosedive.
Oh man.
And they're all about AI and all this shit, and there's just no good holography.
Oh man, it's funny because everyone says to me like, why have you got a problem with AI? I said, no, I don't have a problem with AI in general. I got a problem with AI artwork because when I was growing up, to me, AI was like, okay, I want the robots to be like mowing my lawn and doing my laundry and doing my housework so that I can spend time writing poetry and drawing stories. Not the freaking other way around. Go away and cure cancer so that I can sit here and draw, please.
Hey, shout out to Chris at Super Sojourn. We're getting him on the show in a few weeks. He has released the Arc Collector app where you can basically catalog and store your collection. And we're going to have a very interesting chat to him. He's got a great app he's been developing. He's a fan of the franchise. I found him. I asked the group if any of them catalog it, and they all said it's too hard. So anyone that can make it easier, we absolutely welcome it. And he does a great job. And he wanted the Visionaries when he was a kid. Never got them though. Wonder if we'll see them in Skybound at some point. What do you reckon? Skybound, Battle Beast, Visionaries, and Rock Lords. We're going to see some Rock Lords in there.
Oh, Rock Lords. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. Might as well bring Zoids back into it as well while we're at it.
Zoids are getting good release.
Zoids are still here.
Zoids would not be that far. Like, Zoids is not that far off, right? And not forgetting Diachrone.
Diachrone.
Oh, Diachrone. Oh, yes.
Didn't they just bring out a Zoids Transformers crossover toy?
Yes,
he probably
awesome. did. He is phenomenal. I've got him on my shelf there. I'm very happy with that.
You just don't want the Diachrone's disease.
No, we don't need that one.
Diarrhea Crohn's.
Just
man,
trouble digesting like mech suits or something. I don't know.
This picture here, this one is one of my favorite all-time pictures in the UK. Will run again by Lee Sullivan. Basically, it comes from the storyline Space Pirates, where the Quintessons are basically their planet's dying, and so they just basically go, we're just going to invade Autobot City on Earth, and so they end up, taking over, and they manage to trick Rodimus into turning up, and then they take the Matrix off him, and then he turns back into Hot Rod because they made up a rule. It was like, oh, if it gets 50 meters away from me, I magically turn back into Hot Rod. So he has to use his ingenuity to try and figure out what to do. And the thing, it was a great storyline because Blaster is one of the guys that's they string all these Autobots up on the wall, right? And Blaster's out for the count, but Hot Rod goes, well, hang on a minute. I can use these cassettes. So he takes the cassettes out and uses them to help fight back. Anyway, he manages to activate, pulls the switch, and the Quintesson General's like, what the hell's going on? Is it an earthquake? And then all of a sudden you just see these big giant arms and fists coming out, rupturing through Autobot City, coming out, and then Metroplex appears. And I love that because I love the idea that Metroplex is a city in his own right, but I love the idea that he actually lived underneath Autobot City sort of in sort of a not hibernation, but until he was called on, and then you just see this massive robot just come out, and they're all the Quintessons are like, oh man, it's a great piece of artwork, and I'm going to try and replicate this at some point. I'm just kind of building up the gumption to do it because, to me, it's one of the great all-time panels.
It's got to be epic, right? It's got to be epic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's got to be good, Yeah. So.
As a kid, he featured strongly in my play space with all the Micromasters, and just the size of him matched well with Micromasters. So he really unlocked a lot of imaginary concepts of greater beings. Like, I don't know if you like Red Hot Chili Peppers, but they've got a lot of songs about California. You can imagine California rising up as a robot and going, I am LA,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like something bigger than what it is, It's like So I've always loved the idea that Metroplex kind of just lived under Autobot City and until he was called on, and it's always that it's the great line, I answer the call of the last prime.
Yeah, nice.
It's good stuff. Yeah.
I broke that on my Metroplex. It was one of my favorite things about that figure. Shout out to Stelios, who's our panel member, who's apparently touched down. He's been here a minute. He's left comments already. So Stelios, your fans did miss you, and he said Harry Potter and the Philosopher.
Nice one, Stelios.
Oh dear, you guys, fantastic. So that kind of wraps up our discussion tonight. Have we missed anything? I said we'd jump around and do everything service. So hopefully we did. Brad,
we've jumped around better than House of Pain, but it's been thoroughly enjoyable, and I certainly really appreciate being on and allowing me just to fully nerd out.
You're very welcome. You're very, very welcome. And if you are one of Brad's youth fans and you've never heard of House of Pain, jump around. Please go check it out because you're doing yourself a favor. This is your Facebook page and your Instagram page. Facebook page with this. What's going on with this Spider-Man figure? I love it. But,
so that was it was an interesting one. Like that was like back when I first started drawing again. There was a thing called Oz Comics. It was a page, and they would do a weekly draw. Weekly challenge. And people would draw. Be a particular character or something, right? And then you just submit it, and they'd post it all, and it was all good fun to see people's takes on stuff. And this one was from when they Into the Spider-Verse came out, and it was kind of like, what's your Spider-Verse look like? And so at the time, I basically had a picture of me kind of driving the girls to school. So it's kind of like they both had so we can see one of them there. The bigger picture has the second one, and they were like, are we there yet? When are we getting to the Spider-Verse? And I'm like, yeah, soon. So that was kind of my take on that.
Daddy Spider-Verse.
Yeah, 100%.
Daddy Spider-Verse. Yeah.
He's got the beard.
You'll have to draw yourself as a bot too. You'll have to draw yourself as a bot.
Mate, it's interesting. Yeah, there's a lot. I got a lot of ideas about drawing original characters. I just kind of it takes up a lot of time to think about how they would, because the engineering of these things, right? Like you gotta sit there and go. Like part of me wants to draw a bunch of mining bots, that come from mining machines because that's kind of the industry I'm in. And I started doing it, and then I was sort of. It's still on my agenda for down the track, but it's definitely.
We'd love to see it. The bottom one is how you find them on Instagram. BP Arts Brisbane is how they find you on Instagram. When's your next Supanova show, Brad? I know you've had a bit of a mishap.
I broke my leg. Yeah, I broke my leg in Melbourne after partying too hard afterwards. So I kind of missed Sydney, and I'm hoping to be in Brisbane in November. So that'll be hopefully my next spot. Otherwise, I'll be in the Gold Coast and Melbourne in April next year. So that's my current bookings, unless I decide to do something in between. But I think at the moment that's probably where I'm working towards. So yeah, but like I said, my inbox is open anytime for anyone who wants a commission. Please send me a message. I love doing commissions. I absolutely love them. They give me the greatest joy. And if you want an obscure bot, that makes me even happier. So, or an original character. If you want an original character,
I'm not commissioning it, but I'll say, do a picture of Gina Reinhardt with the Constructicons.
Yeah, with the mining cons. Yeah. They'd probably be rebelling.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think definitely on the agenda. So yeah,
nice. Make some political bots.
No politics. Going back to Autobot City and Metroplex, I remember seeing a custom of T30 Metroplex and Times Return Fort Max repainted into bright orange. I do remember that too.
I saw that. Yeah, that was amazing. I think they had like 2 Fort Maxes put together or something or other. It was like something really insane. Yeah,
it looked fantastic. If you got space for that, amazing. Coming up, folks, in future episodes, we've got the topic, and Brad, I'd love you to hop in the comments on our channel and let us know. Don't tell us now, all right? Let us know. You can have a think about it. You can only keep 5 Transformers from your collection. What makes the cut? There are no actual hard and fast rules here, right? But 5 Transformers. You're running out of your house. You got to say 5. Which side 5 do you say? So that's fantastic. 19th of July, we've got the Triptychon guy. We're going all the way to the Netherlands, and we're sending a team out there virtually. And we got Goddard coming over, and he's going to talk to us about his take on single character collection. And if you've got 1-2 characters that you'd like dedicate your collection to, we want to kind of explore that and see what the drive is behind that, and really give that kind of collector some time to breathe. So he's very graciously hopped on. And then we're going over to New Zealand on the 26th of July, and Miles is joining us, and we're talking about the anti-Hasbro collector. And Miles was telling me that his midlife crisis was to kind of move away from Hasbro, and now he's got a wonderful third-party KO collection. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll explore that kind of collector as well. So we've got some great content coming up, and we've actually got guests lined up above that, as well as our own home panel and the discussions that we're going to have. So we certainly we've certainly got a lot of fun stuff ahead. And our editor will soon be finished moving house, and then we will basically tether him to a computer to edit all our video clips for us. Thank you for being a part of the show tonight, everyone. Thank you to Brad. Thank you to Scott, Adam, Josh. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone in the comments. We really appreciate it. Please do tell people about us. Like, subscribe, and share. I don't have Mikey to do the cues, so I'm just going to have to kind of wing it with the button. But we do appreciate you guys being with us. And we will see you next Sunday, or you can only keep 5. Which bots do you keep? Let us know in the chat. Watch us in the replay, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Ciao.